The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.
I'm Alan Combs. We're talking with Pat Bone. And Pat, you said you had, during the break we were talking for a moment, you said you had something quite startling to say.
Yeah, I do. We won't have time to talk about some of these other smoking guns, like the IRS selectively losing just the email records that Congress has demanded, and the same loss of 6 others that they also want to question on the same times, all of them on their hard drives. They just mysteriously lost all those things. That's what Nixon claimed about the erasure of tapes when at the White House. I mean, it's identically the same thing, only this on a much broader scale than the IRS doing it, the ones that take our taxes. So we won't have time to dwell on that. But what I'm going to predict here is that by September of this year, the major smoking gun, which is a high crime, not just a misdemeanor, but a high crime, that supposed copy of the birth certificate that is displayed on the White House website as we talk, by many experts has already been proven to be not a copy of anything, of something perhaps that doesn't exist, which is an actual birth certificate, but it is a photoshopped fraud created to look like what they wanted it to look like. And I say they because I don't think it was the president himself, but those around him. But experts who understand the techniques of these things, including a guy in my own office who knows how things are photoshopped and knows the telltale signs of things that have been pasted onto other documents or other things. It is obviously, to anybody that knows that process, a fraud. It is not a copy of anything, and that is a high crime.
Are you saying this will be revealed?
Yeah.
When?
The evidence, I say by September.
And tell me how you know this.
Well, I'm talking to some people that, they are trained. I'll say this, they're trained detectives and investigators, and I've been trying to get people in Congress to pay attention to these things and create. We shouldn't have to be us citizens saying, wait a minute, this thing doesn't look real. These things this man and the administration are doing are not what we're voted.
The people did vote him into office twice.
Yes, that's right.
But the birth certificate issue, he has presented now 2 birth certificates, the one he originally presented, and then...
No, Alan, the first thing he presented was a certificate of live birth.
Right, which is what Hawaii made available. Right. And then Hawaii, though, upon release of the second one, which can only be made available at the request of the person involved, the state of Hawaii said this is a legitimate birth certificate. Well,
there are trained investigators who are finding out, and I can't divulge anything more than I will make a prediction that by September of this year it will be proven that that is not the case. It is not. And look, if there was a hospital in Hawaii in which the President of the United States had been born, and they had a birth certificate to prove it, don't you think there'd be a plaque, there'd be something that would indicate their
What I don't
proud of
understand,
that
though, Pat, is how is it that in 2 different Hawaiian publications, within weeks of the birth of Barack Obama in 1961, there were notices that are now on microfiche, you can find them. How could they have appeared in Hawaiian newspapers within weeks of his birth? How did that happen?
Well, the things that appeared in the papers were just blanket announcements of his birth.
Yeah, well, how would that...
But they didn't name a hospital or a birth certificate.
Well, why would it be in 2 Hawaiian newspapers?
Because somebody put them there. I won't theorize now here on the phone as to how I think that happened, but there's more than one way. You can put anything in the paper you want, and not that anybody was looking at that point to try to create a basis for a guy to be president of the United States, but there were facts in his past and with his parenting and folks involved in his family that made them want to just announce that this man, for instance, just for an example, what if he was born in Mombasa to a woman who could not get on the plane because she was too close to birth? but after she delivered the baby, she came to Honolulu and wanted him to be known as an American citizen. So she put those. What if her mother was working in the documents department at the Honolulu?
Well, the Advertiser is one of them. I'm looking at that right now. I'm looking at one of the announcements. Mr. and Mrs. And it gives their address: Barack H. Obama, 6085 Kalana Highway, son, August 4th. That's in one of the newspapers.
Yeah, and that can be put in the paper. Whoever wants to do that can do that, and for whatever reason. But look, Alan, I can't. I can't pick any one of these things. It's a total picture. It's not just one thing. It's not 10 things.
But you don't believe. I mean, you would have to. You believe he was not born in the United States.
Well, all I can tell you is I was in Mombasa just after he was elected, and everybody there was saying, your president was born here. I brought home a T-shirt that said the birthplace of the president of the United States. I mean, these people, either the whole nation was fooled, or there was something else going on, something that's happening. But also, why? Give me a legitimate reason.
Well, by the way, let me just point out that, Ted Cruz was born in Canada.
Yeah.
But he is, because his mother is American, he has now claimed American citizenship. Barack Obama, simply because even if you are right, which I believe has already been disproven, however, but if you were right, Barack Obama having an American mother would already make him an American citizen.
Well, yeah, and I say that, to me, doesn't disqualify his legitimacy as president. But what does keep adding up are these things that don't match. They don't prove to be totally true. And the easiest thing in the world, Alan, would be for somebody to print a copy of the actual birth certificate. Why would that, if so many millions of people in this country doubt it, and all the polls say there is great doubt among 30-40% of the American people that
not on the birth issue at this point.
Well, maybe it may be diminishing somewhat just because it's
because he's shown birth certificates. I mean, but
have you ever seen a copy of it?
I've seen it. I mean, I've seen it online. I've seen what he showed.
White House, but I've
not held it in my hand.
Why would there be a fraudulent thing on the White House website, and that's going to be...
Well, you're saying it's fraudulent. That has not yet been proven. Well, you also use the phrase high crime or misdemeanor, so are you suggesting that with this revelation, were it to occur as you're predicting, that would be an impeachable offense?
Look, I'm not a constitutional law expert, so all I'm saying is I'm not going to try to draw, either a judgment or a verdict, But I'm saying there are facts, smoking guns on the table, that a congressional committee ought to, at least for nothing else, to settle all the doubt and the allegations that have been made and to show substantive proof. But if this thing is a fraud, if it is a Photoshop fraud, then there has to be some kind of reason for that. But also, answer me this, one last thing. Yeah. Why would a president of the United States seal off his early records? Never been done before.
He didn't seal his office. Again, factcheck.org, if you look at that,
maybe not.
They have not sealed his records. They're not sealed.
Well,
and his records are as available as any other president.
Boy, Alan, you got some other information than anything I've ever heard. Honestly,
I mean, we'll just have to agree to disagree on this, Pat. But
sure.
I mean,
I tell you what, it's all going to come out. I think it's taken a while. It's taken an awful long while. But I'm not a conspiracy theorist. But boy, when you keep.
But don't you think you might sound like one?
Yeah, I probably do. Because I read, I'm a guy who likes to use deductive reasoning, and I think you do too. That when if you see a trail of crumbs from the kitchen shelf where they keep the cookies, and the trail goes all the way to a locked bedroom door where your little son or daughter is, you can deduce maybe they got the cookies.
Well, this has been pretty much settled stuff in terms of the birth certificate and some of the stuff you mentioned. And
we'll see.
But if you're right, we'll know soon enough, won't we, Pat?
Yeah, we will. We'll know whether that certificate, which has a lot of fake stuff on it about whether his father was a Kenyan or native of British East Africa, whether the hospital, they named the hospital in that birth certificate, which it was not called then. The name has been changed since then.
All this birther stuff, though, has been pretty much addressed, especially with the release of the second birth certificate after Donald Trump, kept hitting on this a couple of years ago.
But see, what he did was force the administration to put a smoking gun on the table, and he didn't follow up on it.
Yeah, well,
because if that's true, if what they presented in response to his pressure, then what they did was lay something out there that I say, if it's a fraud, it is a high crime. Now, it'll be up to Congress to decide what to do about it. But
if you keep bringing up high crime in Congress, are you suggesting he should be impeached?
I'm not suggesting it, no, because I say I don't know how all of that works. I'm just saying I had this dream. I had a dream, and it scared me, and it scared you when you read about it.
Well, I was scared to death practically reading about this Marxist who wanted to destroy America.
It seemed so real. It was hard for me to determine what was real and what was just a fantasy. So I keep digging for answers. I'm not a birther.
Well, no, but it sounds like it. How do you know that based on what you're saying?
I'm a questioner. I have seen what purports to be the actual Mombasa birth certificate. People try to decry it. They try to deride it.
Why isn't that a fraud?
Because nobody's proven that it is.
Nobody's proven that what he presented to the American public is a fraud.
That's what's going to happen in September. We'll see.
All right, Pat. Look, I always appreciate you coming on the show.
The only people who don't want to disclose the truth are people with something to hide.